"You can't just park here," one of the officers called out, his voice cutting through the late afternoon heat like a whistle, echoing against the brick buildings lining the quiet street in Atlanta. Monica Harris gripped the steering wheel tighter, the leather cool beneath her palms, her 6-year-old son, Jamal, sitting quietly in the back seat, his small fingers drumming gently against the door panel. She could feel every eye from passing pedestrians tracing the tension radiating from the black and white patrol car that had pulled up behind her, the tires still spinning slightly from their abrupt stop, the lights reflecting off the shiny chrome rims. Her heart pounded in rhythm with Jamal's nervous tapping, but she forced herself to breathe slowly, grounding her thoughts, keeping her posture straight, her shoulders squared even as the officer stepped closer, sun glinting off his badge and mirrored sunglasses, his partner lingering just behind, folding their arms in a display of authority. Monica's voice cut through the charged air, calm yet firm. "I am legally parked, officer. Please check the signs before assuming otherwise." The taller officer paused, lips twitching as if a smirk wanted to form, but his eyes hardened as he scanned the curb, and a whisper of challenge passed between him and his partner. Pedestrians slowed their steps, some pulling out phones, sensing the unfolding confrontation, but Monica didn't flinch. Her gaze was fixed, not on the officers, but on keeping Jamal calm, on showing him that fear didn't have to dictate their actions. The afternoon sunlight reflected off the car windows in golden streaks, dust motes dancing in the beams, and for a fleeting moment, the street seemed suspended in slow motion. The hum of traffic reduced to a background drone as Monica adjusted the rearview mirror slightly to see her son's small, trusting eyes, offering a reassuring smile that didn't waver despite the situation. The air between them thickened, unspoken tension stretching taut, and Monica felt a familiar surge of determination rising from deep within her chest, a calm that belied the flush of adrenaline in her veins, her hand brushing instinctively over the phone in her pocket, ready but not yet revealing the plan she had kept for moments just like this. Her son shifted slightly, leaning forward, curiosity and concern mirrored in his eyes, and Monica offered a silent nod, a subtle signal that everything was under control, that courage wasn't loud but steadfast. The officer exhaled slowly, the sun catching the silver rim of his watch, his shadow stretching long across the asphalt. The authority he wielded momentarily challenged by Monica's unflinching posture, the quiet defiance in her tone resonating in the warm afternoon air, a reminder that composure could speak louder than any shouted order. A car horn blared somewhere down the street, distant yet jarring, but Monica remained anchored, each heartbeat a reminder of resilience, each breath a silent assertion that dignity wasn't defined by circumstance, but by how she chose to hold herself in the face of intimidation. As she adjusted Jamal's seatbelt gently, her fingers brushing his arm with reassuring pressure, she kept her eyes forward, aware of the subtle shift in the officer's stance, the tiny micro-expressions betraying their uncertainty, a flicker of pause in the rhythm of confrontation. Monica's thoughts briefly flitted to the plan she'd had for emergencies, the one she had discussed only in hushed tones with a trusted friend, a call to her brother, Marcus Harris, Delta Force commander, a man whose reputation commanded respect and caution, whose presence alone could redirect the balance of power in moments like this. The idea wasn't meant for show, but as a strategic reassurance, a shield of authority waiting quietly in the background. Monica inhaled deeply again, feeling the warmth of the afternoon sun on her face, the faint scent of blooming magnolia trees mixing with the asphalt heat, grounding herself further, holding the tension at bay, waiting for the precise moment to act, knowing that calm courage often carried more weight than any raised voice or aggressive posture. And in that still, suspended heartbeat before the storm could escalate, she shifted her hand toward her pocket, fingertips brushing the cool edge of her phone, the world narrowing. Around the narrow strip of street, the two officers, her son, and the invisible tether of power that her brother's presence would soon bring to bear, a silent promise that respect, once demanded with dignity, would be restored. Monica Harris exhaled slowly, letting the tension drain from her shoulders just enough to convey calm, while keeping her gaze steady on the two officers, her son Jamal watching her from the back seat. eyes wide with a mixture of curiosity and trust. The sunlight streamed through the windshield in warm golden streaks, illuminating the soft creases of her worn hoodie and the faint lines of fatigue etched across her face from countless early mornings and late nights balancing work and caring for her child. The street around them was alive with the muffled hum of traffic, the distant murmur of conversation, and the occasional shuffle of pedestrians passing by. Yet in this moment the world seemed to narrow down to the taut space between her and the officers. She adjusted Jamal's seatbelt with precise, practiced motions, each gentle tug a reassurance not just for him, but for herself, a reminder that composure could be a quiet force of strength. Monica's mind flickered briefly to the endless lists of tasks she had completed that morning, the grocery bag she had lugged up the 3 flights of stairs, the calls she had made to schedule bills and appointments. Yet none of that compared to the delicate balance of asserting her rights in the presence of authority figures who were accustomed to being obeyed without question. Her breathing remained deliberate, a steady in-and-out rhythm that seemed to slow time around them, her eyes reflecting the soft amber glow of the late afternoon as she measured each movement of the officers. The taller of the two shifted slightly, the mirrored sunglasses masking his eyes but failing to hide the slight tilt of his head, a subtle questioning of his own assumptions, and Monica sensed it without diverting her focus from her son, who had begun to mimic her deep breaths, as if instinctively understanding that his mother's poise was the anchor in the storm of uncertainty. Around them, the city carried on obliviously. A delivery truck rumbled by a block over. A bicycle bell rang somewhere behind. The distant wail of a siren softened by the physical distance, all adding layers of ordinary noise that somehow contrasted with the intensity of this paused confrontation. Monica's fingers brushed the smooth edge of her phone in her pocket once more, a silent signal of the readiness she had prepared for moments like this, a quiet safeguard that did not need to be revealed yet but offered a sense of security, a tether to an authority beyond the immediate scene. She shifted her posture ever so slightly, just enough to align her back straight against the seat, her hands steady on the wheel, conveying to Jamal through action what she could not yet voice. That fear did not dictate their path. That presence of mind was as powerful as any loud proclamation. The officer's voice cut through the ambient sounds again, this time measured but carrying an edge of impatience, and Monica responded with deliberate calm, her tone even, precise, carrying the weight of reason rather than confrontation, her words chosen to assert boundaries without aggression, to reclaim the space that had been momentarily dominated by their authority. Jamal leaned forward slightly, his small hands gripping the edge of the car seat, and Monica offered him a reassuring glance, the kind that spoke of trust and courage interwoven, a bond reinforced through quiet demonstration rather than dialogue. The sun had shifted slightly, casting long shadows across the hood of the car, highlighting the faint lines of determination across Monica's face, the quiet resilience built over years of navigating a world that often judged too quickly and offered too little support. Each second felt suspended, each micro-expression of the officers a subtle acknowledgement of the pause, the unspoken recalibration of power that Monica's steady presence commanded without a single raised voice. She straightened her back again, fingers tightening subtly on the wheel, signaling to herself that the moment of action was approaching, that patience and control were allies that could tilt the scales in her favor. The distant hum of a bus engine, the rhythmic tapping of a passerby's shoes, the slight rustle of leaves in the warm breeze, all combined into a serene backdrop against which Monica's silent command of the situation became more pronounced, each element of the environment emphasizing the stark contrast between the ordinary flow of life and the tense microcosm in which she and her son found themselves, a delicate dance of observation, patience, and readiness. She inhaled once more, the warmth of the sun on her face mixing with the faint scent of asphalt and blooming azaleas nearby, grounding her further, reinforcing the quiet authority she had cultivated through experience. And for a fleeting moment, the street seemed to hold its breath with her, waiting for the next move, aware of the poised strength she carried within, a strength that would soon extend beyond herself, connecting her presence to a force that even the most hardened observer would respect. The taller officer shifted his weight, the polished black shoes scraping slightly against the asphalt as he glanced at his partner, a subtle exchange of judgment and expectation flickering between them, the air heavy with the latent authority they both carried yet untested against the composed presence before them. Monica Harris maintained her calm, her fingers resting lightly on the wheel, the leather warm beneath her touch, her gaze unwavering as she kept Jamal's attention anchored on her steady movements rather than the intimidating figures outside. The sunlight had begun its slow descent, painting long, honey-colored streaks across the street, catching in the silver trims of the patrol car and reflecting in the mirrored lenses of the officer's sunglasses, casting tiny prisms that danced across Monica's hoodie, highlighting the quiet strength in her posture. She adjusted her son's seatbelt once more, gently tucking a stray lock of his curly hair behind his ear, and in that small, intimate gesture, she projected reassurance stronger than any shouted command could convey. The world around them moved in a muted rhythm. A delivery truck rattled past 2 blocks over, the low rumble of its engine vibrating through the street. A cyclist rang a distant bell, and the soft rustling of leaves stirred by a warm afternoon breeze whispered against the concrete. Yet within the confines of the car, a stillness settled, a delicate bubble of control and anticipation, as Monica calculated her next move without haste. She lifted her hand slowly toward her pocket, brushing the edge of her phone, the small rectangular device a talisman of preparedness, a link to her brother, Marcus Harris, whose reputation as a Delta Force commander carried weight and discipline that extended far beyond any street confrontation. Her heart maintained a steady rhythm, each beat a quiet affirmation of readiness, each breath a deliberate pacing to match the pulse of the environment outside, a synchronization of calm and alertness that conveyed authority without overt declaration. Monica's eyes flicked momentarily to the rearview mirror, catching a glimpse of the officers' reflections, the subtle tightening of their jaws, and the slight hesitation in their stance betraying a shift in their perception, a micro-change that she could sense without needing to speak, her silence itself a measured statement of resilience and composure. Jamal's small hands rested lightly on the edge of his car seat, fingers intertwined, and Monica's gentle smile reassured him, reinforcing the lesson that courage often resided in stillness and thoughtful action, not in confrontation or haste. The hum of traffic in the distance, the faint chatter of people walking along the sidewalks, and the intermittent whoosh of a passing bus provided a layered backdrop that contrasted with the focused intensity of the present moment, emphasizing the microcosm of observation and interaction within the car. Monica tilted her head slightly, eyes narrowing ever so faintly as she assessed the officer's movements, each small shift a signal of recalibration, a silent dialogue of posture and attention that underscored the delicate balance of power in play. Her mind briefly traced the steps she had prepared, the conversation she had rehearsed, the legal knowledge and composure she could draw upon if necessary. Yet she remained grounded in the present, letting the anticipation build naturally, allowing the officers to feel the weight of her quiet authority before any words or actions beyond composure were revealed. The warmth of the sun on her face mingled with the faint scent of blooming gardenias from a nearby yard, grounding her senses, reinforcing the unspoken message that preparedness and dignity could command as much respect as any show of force. And within this carefully held moment, Monica felt the subtle shift in energy as the officer's confidence wavered, the space between assertion and deference narrowing with each breath, the city continuing around them, oblivious to the quiet negotiation unfolding in the sunlit street. Monica Harris shifted slightly in her seat, her hands resting lightly on the steering wheel as if it were a bridge connecting calm and authority, each fingertip tracing the worn leather with a quiet deliberation that seemed to steady the air around them. Jamal leaned forward a little, eyes wide, his small hand brushing against the edge of the seat, watching the subtle movements of his mother with an intensity that mirrored her own focus. The patrol car remained a few feet behind, the tires clicking against the asphalt as the officers adjusted their positions, their mirrored sunglasses catching the sunlight in brief flashes that highlighted the tension in the space between them. Monica exhaled softly, the warm afternoon air filling her lungs, carrying the faint scent of jasmine from a nearby yard and the distant hum of an air conditioning unit from a neighboring building, grounding her attention in the physical world while her mind prepared the next step with precision. She tilted her head slightly, eyes scanning the surrounding street for pedestrians and vehicles, noting their movements but not allowing them to break her composure. Each motion of her body calibrated to convey calm confidence rather than fear. Jamal's eyes followed hers, absorbing her unspoken guidance, his small fingers flexing and releasing as he mirrored the deep, measured breaths she took, learning from the steady rhythm that defined his mother's presence. Monica reached subtly toward her pocket, fingertips brushing the edge of her phone, a reminder of the connection waiting at her command, a tether to Marcus Harris, whose authority extended far beyond the momentary power of uniformed officers on the street. The sunlight had lowered slightly, casting long golden lines across the hood of her car, illuminating the subtle expressions on her face, the faint tightening around her eyes, the small lift of her chin, the softness of her lips pressed together in silent determination, all elements contributing to an image of composed strength. The officers shifted again, one foot tapping lightly against the pavement, a hand moving toward a belt holster, and Monica noted each action without urgency, her eyes steady, conveying that patience could hold as much power as any show of dominance. Jamal leaned back slightly, settling against the seat, and Monica offered a reassuring smile, the curve of her lips soft but firm, signaling that even in moments of external tension, the internal world of confidence and control remained intact. Around them, the city moved on. A bus rolled down a side street. The faint chatter of pedestrians floated on the air, and the distant barking of a dog echoed briefly before fading. Yet the bubble of focus around Monica and her son remained, a space where measured calm outweighed external pressure. She adjusted her position just enough to bring the rearview mirror into alignment, catching the subtle tilt of the officers' heads, the micro-expressions in their posture, a flicker of uncertainty passing through the mirrored lenses that reflected a slice of afternoon sky. Monica's breath remained even, her posture upright but relaxed, and each detail of her surroundings, the warm sun on the dashboard, the soft hum of traffic, the rustle of leaves in the light breeze, served to reinforce the quiet authority she embodied. The tension between the patrol car and her vehicle held a suspended weight, a silent conversation of presence and observation, with every small movement, finger on phone, tilt of head, shift in posture, contributing to a carefully orchestrated display of calm readiness. The anticipation of action held in the measured beats of the moment, each one a signal that the next step would be deliberate, powerful, and controlled. The taller officer straightened abruptly, the polished leather of his shoes catching the sunlight as he adjusted the mirrored sunglasses that masked his gaze. Yet his posture hinted at a mix of disbelief and impatience. Monica Harris did not flinch. Her hands remained lightly on the steering wheel, her grip steady but relaxed, conveying an unspoken confidence that contrasted with the rigid stance of the officers outside. Jamal leaned slightly forward in his seat, his small fingers curling around the edge of the booster, eyes following his mother's every movement, absorbing the subtle cues she offered without a word. The air between the vehicles was thick with tension, punctuated by the faint rustle of leaves stirred by a warm afternoon breeze and the distant hum of traffic from a nearby avenue. Monica tilted her head, watching the officers shift, noting the micro-expressions of uncertainty that flickered across their faces as they realized that her calm was not a sign of fear, but a deliberate statement of control. She allowed a slow exhale, the warm sunlight streaming through the windshield highlighting the soft lines of determination across her face, the slight curve of her lips pressed together in measured restraint, and the faint lift of her chin, all of which signaled poise in the face of scrutiny. Jamal's small hand rested lightly on his mother's arm, and she offered a reassuring squeeze, a quiet communication of strength and patience, teaching him that presence and composure could counter intimidation more effectively than any raised voice. Monica's eyes briefly scanned the surrounding street, noting the pedestrians and parked cars, the subtle movements of a cyclist passing 2 blocks over, the distant echo of a delivery truck rattling across a manhole cover, each ordinary sound contrasting sharply with the heightened tension of the immediate moment. The taller officer's hand moved slightly toward his belt, a casual motion meant to assert dominance. Yet Monica's calm gaze and deliberate posture created a counterweight, a silent assertion that she was grounded and aware, prepared for any action with calculated patience. Her fingers brushed the edge of her phone once more, a tactile reminder of her connection to Marcus Harris, Delta Force commander, whose reputation extended beyond any ordinary authority figure, and whose presence she could summon to shift the dynamics instantly, without raising her voice or performing any dramatic gesture. The sunlight now glinted off the patrol car's hood in sharp streaks, highlighting the subtle furrows in the officers' brows as they registered the quiet but firm resistance before them, their stance momentarily disrupted by the unwavering calm and deliberate measurement in Monica's actions. She adjusted Jamal's seatbelt again with gentle precision, a simple act of care that reinforced a larger lesson in control and steadiness, her gaze never leaving the officers, her breathing slow and steady, each inhale and exhale deliberate, signaling readiness without aggression. The ambient sounds of the street, distant chatter, the hum of an air conditioning unit from a neighboring building, the occasional bark of a dog, layered against the heightened microcosm of focus in the car, emphasizing the contrast between the ordinary world and the contained tension of the encounter. Monica shifted slightly to align the rearview mirror, catching the subtle tilt of the officers' heads, the faint signs of hesitation in their mirrored eyes, and she held the gaze of her son for a moment longer, the quiet exchange of trust reinforcing their shared understanding that patience, calm, and dignity held their own authority. Each detail of the moment, the warm glow of the afternoon sun on her face, the gentle rustle of leaves, the soft creases in her hoodie, the small, deliberate movements of her hands, coalesced into a silent but powerful message. Composure, awareness, and quiet courage could assert dominance in a way that was visible, palpable, and undeniable, leaving the officers momentarily suspended between expectation and reality, unsure of the next step in a scenario they had assumed they controlled. Monica Harris sat in the quiet tension of the car, the warm afternoon sunlight spilling across her dashboard, casting long amber shadows that seemed to stretch and bend with the movement of the trees lining the street. She let her fingers rest lightly on the steering wheel, feeling the smooth grain of the leather beneath her touch, grounding herself as Jamal watched her intently, his small hands still folded neatly in his lap, absorbing every subtle cue from his mother. The officers remained just outside, their polished shoes reflecting glints of sunlight, their mirrored sunglasses shielding fleeting expressions of doubt and hesitation as they assessed the calm composure of the woman before them. Monica exhaled slowly, letting the warmth of the air mix with the soft scent of magnolia blossoms drifting from a nearby garden, her chest rising and falling in steady rhythm, a quiet demonstration of control that contrasted sharply with the sharp lines of authority that the officers projected. Jamal shifted slightly, leaning forward, his eyes wide and attentive, and Monica offered a gentle, reassuring smile that conveyed more than words could, the quiet, steadfast strength that had carried her through countless challenges before today. The hum of distant traffic blended with the rustle of leaves in the breeze, and the faint sound of a bicycle bell in the distance underscored the normalcy of the city continuing around them, while the moment of suspended tension held them in sharp relief. Monica's gaze swept across the street and back to the officers, noting the subtle micro-expressions, the slight tightening of a jaw, the flicker of an eyebrow, the almost imperceptible shift of weight that hinted at their growing awareness that her calm presence was not to be underestimated. Her hand brushed the edge of her phone in her pocket, a tactile reminder of the connection to her brother, Marcus Harris, Delta Force commander, whose reputation alone commanded respect and recalibration of authority without any need for words or display. Each second stretched deliberately, the world contracting around her focus as she balanced the awareness of Jamal's small presence with the observation of the officer's stance, the sunlight glinting across the hood of the patrol car, throwing tiny prisms of light that danced across the windshield and dashboard, reinforcing the suspended intensity of the moment. Monica adjusted Jamal's seatbelt gently, ensuring comfort while reinforcing the silent lessons of composure and presence, her eyes briefly meeting his in the rearview mirror, conveying trust, calm, and unspoken guidance. The street sounds, the distant chatter, the soft rumble of a bus, the occasional bark of a dog, layered against the intense microcosm within the car, emphasizing the deliberate stillness and controlled anticipation she maintained. Monica's posture remained upright, shoulders relaxed yet firm, a subtle but constant assertion of dignity and readiness, while her gaze flicked between the officers and the surrounding environment, noting movement, orientation, and spacing, allowing her to maintain a measured command over the dynamic without raising her voice. The sunlight deepened, bathing the scene in a warm, golden hue that highlighted the careful lines of her expression, the smooth movements of her hands, and the subtle interplay of light and shadow that framed the tense but contained moment. Each inhale and exhale was precise, her body language transmitting calm authority, the street around them holding a quiet pause, as if acknowledging the unspoken negotiation of power. Jamal leaned back slightly, reassured by the rhythm of his mother's breath and the steady gaze that never wavered, and Monica allowed a soft smile to cross her lips, the smallest movement radiating reassurance and quiet confidence. The patrol car's tires clicked faintly on the asphalt as the officers shifted, the small, almost imperceptible changes in their stance reflecting a recalibration in response to her silent assertion, the weight of anticipation thick in the warm afternoon air. Monica's fingers returned briefly to the edge of her phone, drawing comfort from the connection to Marcus Harris without needing to act yet, her attention fully anchored in the present, holding the suspended moment with deliberate, controlled patience, each detail of the scene, the sunlight, the shadows, the distant city sounds, the small movements of her son, and the subtle shifts in the officer's posture, combining to create a tableau of quiet authority, poised, readiness, and unspoken moral weight that resonated through the street without a single word being spoken. Monica Harris's hand hovered over the edge of her phone, the warm afternoon light catching the delicate curve of her fingers, and with a steady exhale, she pressed the call button, her voice calm and deliberate as she said her brother's name, Marcus Harris, Delta Force Commander. Across the street, the officers paused mid-motion, the faint creak of the car door and the click of a seatbelt against metal sounding disproportionately loud in the suspended tension of the moment, their mirrored sunglasses reflecting the sudden shift in energy, the sunlight glinting off the patrol car in sharp streaks. Monica's heart remained steady, her breathing deliberate, as she kept her gaze forward, projecting the unshakable poise that had defined her every movement, her fingers tightening subtly on the steering wheel to ground herself as she anticipated the response. Jamal watched, wide-eyed, leaning forward just slightly, feeling the change in the air even though he could not name it, trusting entirely in his mother's composed authority. The street seemed to contract around the vehicles, pedestrians pausing briefly as if sensing the change, the distant hum of traffic and the faint murmur of conversation fading into a muted backdrop, while all focus centered on the quiet assertion of power that emanated from Monica, a power now linked to an authority far beyond her own. Moments later, the subtle rumble of a high-performance engine approached, low and deliberate, the vibrations through the pavement signaling the arrival of someone whose presence altered the dynamic immediately. Marcus Harris stepped into view, the lines of his posture commanding attention, his uniform neat and precise, the discipline ingrained in him evident in every small movement, his gaze sweeping the scene with measured calculation. The officers instinctively straightened, the tilt of their heads, the slight tightening of their jaws, the micro-movements of their hands betraying a sudden reassessment of the situation as they registered the significance of his presence, the sunlight reflecting off the polished surfaces of his gear and emphasizing the contrast between his calm authority and their earlier posturing. Monica kept her expression steady, her lips pressed lightly together, eyes forward, her son's hand resting lightly on her arm, and the subtle pressure offered silent reassurance while the shift in power unfolded. The city around them continued its rhythm, the faint bark of a dog, the distant clatter of a passing bus, the rustle of leaves in a light breeze, all creating a serene backdrop that amplified the contained intensity of the encounter, the ordinary sounds of life juxtaposed with the extraordinary assertion of authority that now dominated the street. Monica's fingers tightened briefly on the wheel as Marcus approached, the subtle, deliberate movement reinforcing the connection between her composure and the unspoken backup that had arrived, an alignment of strategy and calm that left the officers visibly unsettled. She met Jamal's eyes in the rearview mirror, offering a brief, reassuring smile, the kind that spoke of confidence, trust, and readiness without a single word, and the child mirrored the calm in his own posture, learning that strength often resided in observation and measured action. The taller officer glanced again at his partner, an almost imperceptible nod passing between them, their previous certainty now tempered by the unspoken warning embodied in the disciplined presence of Marcus Harris, their posture relaxing slightly, yet filled with a new awareness of limits. Monica inhaled, letting the warm air fill her lungs, the scent of magnolia mingling with asphalt and distant city sounds, a sensory reminder that she remained fully grounded while the balance of power shifted decisively in her favor. Each detail, the glinting sunlight, the long shadows stretching across the asphalt, the subtle creases of determination in Monica's face, the rhythmic exhalations and small gestures of reassurance to her son, the faint vibration of the approaching authoritative figure, coalesced into a tableau of resolved authority, an unspoken but undeniable message that the dynamics had changed, the tension diffused by the quiet, precise orchestration of presence, timing, and unwavering composure, leaving the officers silently acknowledging the shift as Monica and Marcus maintained their calm, controlled hold over the street without a single raised voice. Monica Harris allowed a slow, deliberate smile to cross her face as Marcus Harris stepped fully into the sunlight, the subtle warmth illuminating the contours of his disciplined features, his posture commanding and unshakable, projecting a quiet authority that immediately altered the energy of the street. The officers, now fully aware of the presence they faced, shifted slightly back, the rigid lines of their bodies softening, the micro-expressions in their eyes betraying a newfound awareness and a touch of respect for the unspoken power dynamics that had just realigned. Monica glanced at Jamal in the rearview mirror, his eyes reflecting relief and trust, and she offered a gentle nod, a silent acknowledgement that the immediate tension had shifted, that their patience and composure had held firm, and that the presence of Marcus would ensure the situation concluded with dignity. The sunlight fell across the patrol car, casting long shadows that stretched across the asphalt, the faint glint of polished chrome and badges creating sharp, fragmented reflections. Yet within these reflective surfaces the officer's earlier certainty now wavered, the tension of potential confrontation replaced by a subtle recognition of limits. Monica's hand rested lightly on the steering wheel, fingertips tracing the smooth grain, each small motion an anchor of calm as her gaze swept across the surrounding street, noting pedestrians who had slowed, some watching with curiosity, others turning their heads as if sensing the resolution that was silently unfolding. The distant hum of traffic, the occasional bark of a dog, and the soft rustle of leaves in the afternoon breeze provided a serene backdrop, emphasizing the controlled, almost ceremonial shift in authority that had taken place without a single raised voice. Marcus approached with measured steps, each movement precise, his presence radiating assurance, and Monica's calm demeanor complemented this silent command, creating a seamless tableau of readiness and moral authority that required no verbal confrontation. Jamal leaned slightly forward again, small hands resting lightly in his lap, absorbing the calm and the careful orchestration of their environment, learning in real time the lessons of composure, observation, and quiet influence that defined his mother's actions. Monica exhaled gently, feeling the subtle vibration of her phone in her pocket, a reminder of the power of preparation and connection, yet she kept her focus forward, allowing the quiet energy of the moment to speak volumes as the officers adjusted their posture, a visible acknowledgement of their recognition and recalibration in the presence of disciplined authority. The sunlight deepened, casting amber hues across the street, highlighting the fine lines of concentration and poise on Monica's face, the gentle curve of her lips pressed in subtle satisfaction, and the soft interplay of light and shadow across the scene, reinforcing the calm resolution of a situation that could have escalated but instead had been held in measured control. Monica's eyes met Jamal's once more, a brief, reassuring glance that conveyed safety, confidence, and the quiet triumph of patience and moral clarity. And Jamal mirrored her posture with a small but firm nod, understanding through observation the lessons she embodied. The officers, now standing slightly apart, their hands resting at their sides, shifted their weight. The once rigid air of dominance softened into an unspoken respect, the mirrored lenses reflecting fragments of the street, the vehicles, and the poised mother and son who had commanded the moment through deliberate composure. Each second lingered in the warm afternoon air, the distant sounds of the city providing a muted soundtrack to a scene defined not by words or confrontation, but by the quiet assertion of presence, moral authority, and steadfast resolve. With Monica Harris and Marcus Harris forming a united front that balanced calm patience with unspoken power, leaving the street imbued with a palpable sense of resolution, dignity, and the profound effect of composure held in the face of challenge. Monica Harris eased the car into motion, her hands steady on the wheel as the warm sunlight of late afternoon stretched long shadows across the street, painting golden lines that traced the contours of the pavement and the parked cars along the curb. Jamal leaned back comfortably, his small hands resting lightly in his lap, eyes wide and attentive, reflecting the calm that now enveloped the space between them. The officers remained a few feet behind, stationary, their posture relaxed, yet carrying an unspoken acknowledgement of the shift that had occurred, the mirrored lenses of their sunglasses catching brief flashes of sunlight that danced across the hood of their patrol car, casting fractured reflections of the calm tableau. Monica inhaled slowly, drawing in the mixture of urban air and faint scents of magnolia and asphalt, letting the rhythm of her breathing set a cadence for the unfolding sense of relief and resolution. She glanced in the rearview mirror once more, meeting Jamal's eyes with a soft, reassuring smile, a silent communication that the moment of tension had passed, that their patience and composure had held, and that dignity had been preserved without confrontation or raised voices. The distant hum of traffic and the faint murmur of pedestrians walking along the sidewalks provided a gentle backdrop, highlighting the contrast between the ordinary life of the city and the extraordinary quiet power that had just been exercised. Marcus Harris followed at a discreet distance, his presence no longer overt but felt in the subtle shift of energy around them, a steady, reassuring anchor that lent gravity to the sense of order and safety now prevailing on the street. Monica's eyes scanned the surrounding area, taking in the soft movements of the city, the gentle sway of tree branches in the warm breeze, the glint of sunlight reflecting off distant windows, each detail grounding her and reinforcing the calm authority she carried naturally. Jamal's small hand brushed against hers briefly, a silent acknowledgement of the security and confidence that radiated from his mother, and Monica allowed a tiny smile to curve her lips, the smallest gesture filled with the weight of assurance and the quiet celebration of composure maintained through measured patience. The sunlight deepened further, turning the street into a tapestry of golden hues, long shadows stretching across asphalt and sidewalk alike, emphasizing the stillness and the balance of energy now settled between the vehicles and the people on the street. Monica exhaled once more, her fingers lightly tracing the leather of the steering wheel, feeling the texture as a tactile reminder of presence and control, while her eyes flicked once more to the officers, whose subtle nods and shifts in stance now mirrored respect and understanding without a single spoken word. The street seemed to hold its breath alongside them, each car passing at a distance, moving like a slow current, each pedestrian a quiet witness to the scene that had unfolded and resolved through patience, composure, and the quiet assertion of dignity. Monica allowed herself to feel the weight of the moment settle fully, a gentle release of tension paired with a reaffirmation of confidence, while Jamal mirrored her posture, small hands resting gently, learning through observation the lessons of steadiness, quiet authority, and calm judgment. The warmth of the sun, the subtle fragrances of the neighborhood, the soft sounds of distant traffic, and the interplay of light and shadow combined to create a serene yet powerful atmosphere, a silent reflection of resolution and moral balance that filled the air around them. Monica guided the car smoothly down the street, the gentle movement of the vehicle accentuating the calm flow of energy, the stillness in the surrounding space highlighting the quiet impact of composure and strategic presence. And with each turn and measured movement, the city resumed its ordinary rhythm around them, now imbued with the sense that patience, calm, and moral clarity had decisively steered the outcome, leaving the street enveloped in the quiet resonance of dignity maintained and authority subtly recognized.